Okay, Zokta Heilige Gemara. So what we were doing yesterday was we were discussing the Machloikas Rav and Shmuel, what Mave means. And Rav said that Mave meant Adam, which is how we read the Mishnah originally. Shmuel said it's referring to Shane. And after they each brought psukim that are not uber convincing, Rav's hachacha, that it means man, is im tevayin boyu. If you daven, you'll hasten the geula, a remote reference to man. And Shmuel says Mavizer Hashem, because we're talking about how Esav's assets will be revealed so that he could be ransacked la'asid love when Mashiach comes. So that's how we know it's referring to Shane. Again, very remote references. The Gemara ended up asking why didn't Rav like Shmuel and why didn't Shmuel like Rav, and they each had problems with how it was expressed. So the Gemara said, Michti, at the end of the day, if you look at the psukim themselves, they're not really a haichacha towards Rav or towards Shmuel. So what's the real reason why they're arguing? Rav my time Shmuel. So that's where we're up to. But we finished off with a question yesterday. And the question was, if Mava means Adam, why couldn't the Mishnah come outright and say Adam? And if the Mishnah means Shane, like Shmuel, why couldn't the Mishnah just say Shane? Why use these code words and just confuse things? I'm sorry? So they can have a machlekes. They don't need material. They're doing pretty good. So the Marsha has a very interesting thought that he said the Arba Avos Nazikin are connected the four types of peronios that a Kadosh Baruch Hu brings to the Bria. He has an aricha, so I'm just going to quickly run through it. And he says that's why that's what the Mishnah B'dafka wants to refer to man using these particular psukim. So what he says is there's four main categories of destruction that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings to the world. The three most common ones, we say it in the Shemona Esrei in Musaf, but we also say it every day. Ezer lacherev, ve'ezer l'rov, ve'ezer l'dever. Cherev, rov, and dever. Sword, which is Rachman L'Tzlom, what we suffered on October 7th. Rov is a magefa, a plague. Rov is a hunger where people don't have food, and dever is a plague. When we suffer from one of those horrible things, it's easier to find a way to escape it. Aval al kulam, the worst type of punishment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings to the world is peronius haba. I assume it means bechema, with anger, be'esh, with a fire. She'oisa kiloyon gomer. Eish is the most destructive force of destruction that could be found. Valzeh Omar, Lule Hashem Tzivakos, Hoyser Lanu Srid, if Hashem wouldn't have personally intervened, Kamat Kistoim, we would be like Stoim. Stoim we know is Nidaim Be'esh, which we just learned on Shabbos. Ki Stoim Nidin Be'esh, Benasa Kala Gomer, Kimafurish, Vashem Himtir, Gofrish Ve'esh, Vayafach. You see that there was a lot of fire going on in the destruction of Sodom. So then the Marsha goes through how the other, how we have Shor, Vabar, Vamava, how they're connected the Ra'ov, they're connected the Cherev, and they're connected the Dever. And the Eish, of course, is connected to Eish. So he fears us at the end. He fears us at the end. The Alzem Maisi Hachakra, the Gabe Esav, the bad things that happen are the psukim that discuss them happening to Esav, not to Klal Yisrael. So he says over here, Hysteria Hadovar, that's why Rav and Shmuel both brought their rayas as to whether or not Mava is Shane or Mava is Adam from psukim, the Chesivi Gabe Esav, that are describing events and oinshim that are going to be applied to Esav. V'stiru hadovar beremes, and it was concealed in a remes. Lamar Mavaz Adam, and he brings a cry again about a punishment by Esav. Elai Kari Misayer, Tani Begalos Edom, Shukai Hacherev, The Omar and the Torah teaches us, and the message that the Mishnah is teaching us, that lihinotzel min cherev shel Esav. How do we save ourselves from the cherev of Esav? It's very appropriate nowadays. Im teboyin boyu. If you daven, ayde tefila ubakosha kamashoma akosov hakoil kol Yaakov vaydami de Esav. So the Mishnah is teaching us, while it's teaching us Hilchos Nazikin, it's teaching us a method how to become saved from Sinas Hagoyim when they want to kill us, and that is through tefillah. And that's why the Mishnah, the Tana decided to use the word mave when it discusses the damages created by man, because it's trying to send us a message that the essence of man is to daven, as the Netziv says. And by davening, we can overcome, we can be saved from the Einshim that Esav wants to inflict upon us. Ulamar Zahashen, according to Shmuel, it's Shane. Once again, the koiche shel Esav shenimsa lachazir ayar. He's considered he's compared to a wild hog. Then koiche lebeshinov. His strength is with his teeth. Shalzer ramos b'daniel b'mayar chaya revius. So he goes on. Once again, we don't want to be attacked. Ach l'gabe Yisrael shenekir sheiris lo yisiya koiche l'chaloisam b'shineh v'koich hatuma. The goy, he will not be able to destroy us with the koyach of shinayim, with the koyach of shein. Why? Because so he says something very, very interesting. It says that the Chaya Revius was that was mentioned in the Nevuah, I guess, was a pig. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want us to fall into the mouth of the pig. Now we know the pig. There's a first certain saying by a pig called Akusha the Chazer Fisel. You ever heard that saying? Akusha Chazer Fisel, someone who's a fake phony and a fraud, but he wants to make himself like his erlich. So a pig has split hoofs and his front legs sort of push forward as if he's trying to show, look, I'm kosher. But really he doesn't chew its cud and he's tummy. So the koyach shinayim of a pig is tumah because the pig does not chew its cud. So therefore, the koyach hatuma that Esav has, we will not succumb to. How will the pig be able to hurt Klal Yisrael? Using its feet, roughly crushes it, where the pig has a siman tahira because he has split hooves, shima freses parsa. We darshan bekumalenu odom is bekumalenu odom to bekumalenu edom. We're thanking Hashem that we didn't fall victim to the teeth of the pig. Only with its feet. That's why when it's referring to Shane, it also brings a pasuk that's referring to the downfall of Esav. His teeth should be uncovered. You shouldn't be able to use those teeth to hurt Klal Yisrael. And then the final one of the Mazikin is v'choshev b'soif ha'hever shu per anius ha'esh ha'kosher mikulam. That's the most severe punishment. Shemechala ha'koil. V'alkein kari hever shemechala u'mavayir kol dover min olam. Hever means it destroys everything in its path. Hashem Yisbarach yishmerenu v'dalet per anius eila. So I guess the Mashal is getting Hasidish. In the schus of us learning the zikin that man caused, we have a shemira from any damages that the goyim want to inflict upon us. We should have a Yeshua, the Moshe should help, and all those Eden that are captured and are fighting should all come back healthy and strong and alive. We have a boy in our neighborhood who actually was sent into Gaza last night, and his battalion was mobilized, and now he's fighting in Gaza. And from what I hear, they're not publicizing it, but I know from what I hear is they actually went into the Rafa hospital yesterday, which is an extremely dense area. So as Hashem, in the course of our learning, Klal Yisrael should have a Yeshua. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says over here. So the Gemara says, so what is the real reason why Rav doesn't hold like Shmuel? Zok the Gemara, because why would Mave mean Shane if the first one of the Avos Nazikin mentioned is already Shar? Tana Shar v'chol milid Shar. The heading of Shar includes Karen, Shane, and Regal. Why would we need to have a special of Mave for Shane? Ushmul Nami Hatani Lashar. So we turn to Shmuel. We ask. Rav has a good argument. We already have Shor. Why mention Shane specifically? Amar Rav Yehuda Tana Shor lekarnoi umava l'shem. Shor is just referring to the Karen. Mav is referring to the Shane. V'hachik Amar. And this is how you would explain it. Now, of course, what about Regel? The Gemara is going to get to that in a minute. But first, the Gemara is trying to explain the Loi Roizeh Karoizeh. And it's not going to work out too well. V'hachik Amar. Loi Roya Karen she'enan ala zekai. Karen is the animal does not have a no from the damage that it does. It's doing it out of anger. So therefore, if it said Karen in the Torah, we would never have known that Shane is also chayv to pay. Karaya Shane sheyesh no lazeka. If it's eating to satisfy its hunger, that's called a no. When it's doing something out of anger, when we do things out of anger, we don't have much of a no either, right? You never did something out of anger that you regretted a second later? I hear. What the Gemara is going to shortly ask for that nanosecond. So we're going to soon see that the logic is a little bit faulty, because what's more mistaber to be mechayiv somebody to pay, if he has a no or if he doesn't have a no? It's more mistaber to say that he should pay if he had a no. So this is going to be this is a little bit difficult, which the Gemara is going to note in a second. And if it would only say Shane, I wouldn't know that Karen is chayiv, because Shane is ain't kavanah lahazik. He's just trying to satisfy his hunger. And again, that's also counterintuitive, because you would think that if it's kavanah lahazik, that's more of a reason to be mechayiv. And that's what the Gemara asked. Halav kal v'chaymerhu uma shein shein kavanah lahazik chayiv Karen shekavanah lahazik loy kol shekain. Zok Gemara Israel. So kadai dechamina, I would have thought midi dehava eved v'ama. An eved and an amma. If your eved or if your amma does damage, you don't have to pay, even though it's kavanah lahazik. Eved v'ama lav afal gav the kavanah lahazik. Even though they have an intention to damage somebody, afilu achi p'tiri. Nevertheless, you as their adon, you as the person responsible for them, do not have to pay. So I would have thought, hachinami lo ishna, here by Karen, hu adin, I shouldn't have to pay. Zok to Gemara, that's not a svari either, because the reason why by Eved v'Alma you don't have to pay for their damages, that's a whole separate reason that you could never apply to shame. Amar Avashi atu Eved v'Alma lav taima rabbi ispu. There's a very important reason why we pater the adon from the damages made by his Eved and Alma. And that is, Shema Yakni Tanu Rabbi. Imagine you're rough on your Eved, you make him work too hard, he gets angry at you, and he'll purposely burn down the neighbor's field and cause that his Adon should have to pay him. That's going to be uncontrollable, because every time the Eved has a hard day, he's going to blow something up. It's not sustainable. So because of that, they had to do a carve out. And even though me'ikar adin, you should be mechuyev to pay for damages that your eved and your amma do, because of this reason, it would be uncontrollable. We're not mechayev them. So you can't bring me a right from there to a Shane or Karen, where it is or not kavanah lahazik. Surely that should have no impact.
What if he doesn't do it on purpose? What if it was just an accident and he didn't do that? That's a very, very good question. That's a very good question. So Tosfos tells us that the reason why they have to pater him from paying, even if they did it by accident, because they'll do it on purpose and they'll say that they did it by accident. So because of that, they had to pater the adon even if it was done by accident. So that's what Tosfos says over here. If it was ein kavanah lahazik, the onusu the pahamim din iskavnu v'yomer lo niskavnu lekach b'tiri b'chol inyan.
This sounds like the patur must be deraisa. That they don't have, the Adon doesn't have a chiyuv mideraisa to pay. Because if he did, how could the Chachamim come and pater him? Whereas in the case
the
of the
Chachamim
shore,
could pater him with Hefker Bes and Hefker.
is that what the Gemara is going to here?
I'm assuming that's how it. I'm assuming that's how it works, because why else would they be pater?
So the victim just has to take the loss, just has to eat, and he doesn't get compensated.
So these are all very good questions. Let's learn Tosfos, because Tosfos actually addresses directly these points. So let's look at first Midi David Eved Amma Zok Tosfos Veloy Kapirish Rashi. I disagree with Rashi, but Rashi is what's going to answer your question. Shapirish Mishum Leknan Ba'Choyvel Eved VeIsha Pigios and Ra. Coming in contact with an Eved or an Isha, it's always trouble. Why is it always trouble? Because if you damage them, you have to pay. But if they damage you, they don't have to pay. Why don't they have to pay? Because an Eved doesn't have any money. An Eved doesn't have any money, and Isha doesn't have any money. So it's best to stay away from them. Stay away from somebody who's dangerous and doesn't have insurance, because it's going to end up costing. But Tosfos disagrees with Rashi's shot that that's the reason, because it doesn't say Eved ve'isha in our Gemara. It says Eved ve'ama. The Mishnah at the end of Masechet Yadayim says Eved v'ama. The time of Mishum Shami Yakitenu Rabbi the Besamach Mefur Shasam. So Tosfos asks a question which really touches on what a Vigor asked, whether it's Darais or not. La v'afal gav the kavanos alazak afilu achitur. Tim Toimar, Frek Tosfos, we have a reason to be mechayiv someone to pay for damages that is Eved and Amadid midaraisa. Tim Toimar Eved v'amagufei nelef mikal v'chaymer dishain lischayiv. You can learn from Shane Madach Shane, where it's ein kavanos lazik kol shekain these Eved v'ama where they're kavanos lazik doesn't should be chayiv. Even the Katla other time of the Shami Yakitani Rabbi. Before you have the Svar of Yakitani Rabbi, we have this Kavachomer. So to me, that says that really Meikadin, Midai Raisa, there should be a Chiyuv. But because the Chazal have to step in to protect the Adain from this type of damages, they have to say a potter. And they must be working with Hefker Bez Nefker. I don't see how else it could work. Because we have a Kavachomer, a Svara, to in fact be Mechayev somebody for the damages that his Eved v'ama cause.
It's so bizarre, because if you have a shore that's dangerous, right, then eventually we make you put it down. But if you have an Amma that's or a Shiv,
Eved or
an Eved that's dangerous, we pater you from the damage that they cause. It just seems so backwards logically. I still don't see how that works.
Okay, but at least we know that is how it works. So we're back to square one. What is the Mishnah saying that if it would say Karen, I wouldn't know Shay? Ella porachach loyroya Karen shekavanos lahasim. If the Torah only said Karen, I would think that only Karen, the other is chayiv, the owner is chayiv, because the shore is kavanos lahazik. Kara Shane kavanos lahazik. Loyroya Shane sheyeshana lazekoi. And Shane, if it would only say Shane, I would think only Shane is chayiv, because the animal benefits while it's doing the damage. So all the Gemara did was it flipped it around. It used the svara of Hanola Zekoi to explain why Shane should be chayiv and Karen should be potter, and it used the svara of Kavanas al-Hazik to explain why Karen should be chayiv and Shane should be potter. So just flipped around the svaras to be used to explain the argument of the Mishnah. According to Shmuel, where we have Mava for Shane, you have Shor for Karen. How come Regel isn't mentioned at all in the Mishnah? So Gemara, the end of the Mishnah does the roundup. The end of the Mishnah says, Kishahizik Chavamazik, L'Shalom Tishlim Nezik B'Meitav Haaretz. So the Cheshehizik Chavamazik is like a generalization, L'Suy Regel. Frek Gemara, is Regel chopped liver? L'Shanya Behedya. Why does Regel only get an honorable mention and doesn't get its own category? Ela Amarava, Tana Shar L'Ragloi, Umava L'Shena. In fact, Shar is not referring to Karen. Shar is referring to Regel, and Mav is referring to Shane. Well, now we have to go through the Loyrois all over again, because if it's Regel, we have to see why, if the Torah would say Regel, why I wouldn't know Shane from it. If the Torah only told us about regel, I would have thought that only regel is chayiv because motzi. It's very common for such a type of damage to occur. Karaya shein shein motzi. The loy raya shein sheishan olazikoi. Karaya regel shein olazikoi. But Frek Gemara, based on this approach, now Karen got left out of the equation. The Karen my shayri. Now, what about Karen? Zok Gemara, for that we have again kishizik havamazik. I'm sorry.
Karen my shayri.
Oh, that's right. That's how you live. What happened to Karen? Shari, did the Mishnah actually, did the Tana actually omit it? Zok Gemara, no, kishizik havamazik lasuye Karen. Frek Gemara vilasanya behedya. Why doesn't the Tana mention it under its own heading? Because the Tana only wants to mention things that are bemu'adon mitchilos and kamai, things that pay nezek shalom from the beginning, from the first occurrence, because they're always considered amazing mud legabadat, because it's a common enough thing. Karen, which the first two negichas, they don't pay nezek shalom, they only pay chatzin nezek because it's such an unusual occurrence. And therefore, it's not so incumbent on the Odin to watch the animal from such a type of damage. Loy Kamari, that's not the discussion of our time. We explained already why Rav doesn't say like Shmuel, because we already had Shor. No need to have another category for Shor. So Shmuel, why don't you like Rav? Rav has a good title. Let it be Adam. Why can't it be Adam? Amar Lach, so Shmuel will say, Isol Kadaitach Adam. If you're going to say that Mava is referring to Adam, Hakatani Seifa. If you look at the later Mishnah on Daf Tezvav Amir Aleph, or is it Amir Beis? I can't see so good. On Daf Tezvav Amir Beis. If you look at the Mishnah Daf Tezvav Amir Beis, the Mishnah lists off Shar Hamud, V'Shar Hamasik, V'Shar Nizik, V'Ha'adam. So the second Mishnah directly addresses Adam. So that's why there's no need to address Adam in the first Mishnah. Fact, the more of a list liberation. Why should Adam get into the second Mishnah? Let him be up front and center in the first Mishnah of Arba Avos. So tomorrow, Beniske moment Kamari. When the Tana was introducing Arba Avos, he was listing off the possessions that one has, what type of Avos Nazikin apply to them. Beniske Gufay. Talking about the damages that a person does himself, like Kamari, that's not the focus of the Tana on the first Mishnah. For the Gemara, Shmuel has a good argument. Why do you need to mention Mava as Adam in the first Mishnah? We've already mentioned Adam in the second Mishnah. Rav Nami Hakatani Adam b'Seifa. Amalach Rav Hahu lemechshevei b'hadim Adam hudas. The reason why Adam was mentioned in the next Mishnah has nothing to do with listing off the different categories of mazikin. There, the Mishnah is going on a tangent, and the Mishnah is discussing all of the types of damages that you pay nezek shalom for upfront, and there's no period of tamus where you pay chatzi nezek. So that's why Adam was listed there. But that's not where we're listing the Avos Nezikin. That's just a side item. So Avada Adam belongs very much in the first Mishnah when we're listing off the main categories of Nezikin.
How does Shmuel answer that?
Shmuel holds, it says it there, so it's good enough.
It's true that the Mishnah is only listing off the five.
Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says. So now Umay Loy Harei. So now we need to understand the Loy Harei, because if you remember when we learned the Mishnah, when it said Loy Harei Hashar Karei Mava, the Loy Harei Mava Karei Hashar, the Mishnah didn't explain. Now the Mishnah is going to explain. Okay, Umay Loy Harei, Hachi Kamma Loy Roy Hashar Shemishalom as a Kofer, Karaya Adam She'ein Mishalom as a Kofer. If it would have only said Shar, I would have said Dafka Shar is Chai for Nezikin, because if a Shar kills a person, a Shar pays Kofer. Mashenkin, an Adam who kills a person, he doesn't pay Kofer. And if we only knew about the damage of a person, well, a person, when he damages another person, he doesn't just pay Nezek, he also pays the 4 additional Chiyuvim of Tsar, Ripoy, Shevis, and Boshus, which we'll see in Rashi what those are. Karaya Shar, She'ein Boy Arba Dvarim, Hatzar Shavush Shebehen, Shedach and Lahazik. So let's stop here for a second. So you said that Toshus touches on your kasha.
In the match of the mood,
Shmuel Svirle. So Chaim asked, what does Shmuel do, right? So Shmuel Svirle the lehavale lashminum. It didn't need to tell us b'seifa kivan the lo yashminin shum chidush tfeimi bereisha. Just to mention it again because you want to put it into the list of muadim. The Mishnah wouldn't do that unless there's some extra piece of information you can get from it. Avoshein v'regel, which is listed in the second Mishnah, what new piece of information do we learn by mentioning it again in the second Mishnah? What is the chiddush that we learned there? The mefarish Hashem mu'edis lecha l'saroyula, v'regel mu'edis l'shaber der chilucha. So it's telling us more detail in what Shane is a mood. Shane's not a mood for anything. It's only a mood if it eats something that it normally eats. If it eats something that's unusual for it to eat, that wouldn't either have a chiv of Shane, that wouldn't be called a mood with chilasai, and the same thing with Redel. The Karanami Tana. Okay, so I mean we must finish the Tosh already. The Karanami Tana. The Avagad the Tana Bereisha. What about Karen? Why does that have to be mentioned again? Lasuya Karen, which is how Shmuel learned. Because it's also relevant to the Chamisha Tamim. Since it's listed later in the Mishnah, where it talks about the Chamisha Tamim, it includes it earlier. When we're listing off Mu'adim et Chilason in the second Mishnah, why didn't it list Eish and Bar? We're only the Tana there only wants to list things that have life to them. A balei chayim, you could make a distinction between if it did it once, twice, or three times, because you see the animals picking up bad habits, doing bad things. But an inanimate item, its personality does not change. So therefore, there's no need to talk about Tammuz and Muadim. They're always in a steady state. Okay, Gavalti. Now let's learn a little bit about what this trichasa was with Koifer and what this trichasa was with the Arbet Dvarim. So Zok Rashi, my loyarei, the Ketani B'Mesistin, loyarei Ashor Karei Amave l'Rav. We're talking about, according to Rav, Dam Amav Adam Shor Muad Shenagach a Shor Muad that stoys the person umeis and the person died. Mishalim Koifer, he has to pay Koifer, and there's a shayla that means the value of the mace to the mace's family, or if it means the value of the owner of the animal to the mace's family. So is he paying the value of the mace, or is he bailing himself out? Hilchach, because of shor, if the Torah only told us that a shor is chai for nezikin, I would never have known that if an adam does damage, an adam also has to pay. The adam shor gets chaver b'mezit. A person who kills his friend b'mezit, nerag, he gets killed. B'shoyit goyla. But v'enim mishalem koifer, you never find a scenario where he pays. Now let's look at the other side. Why would you say only an adam is mechuyev nezikin? Because adam achayev b'chaveroi chayev ardva dvarim in addition to nezek. Sar ripoy sheves and boishes. Aval nezek loy chashiv. Nezek isn't listed here. The shor nami nezek mishalim, because the shor also pays nezek. We're talking about the extras. Aval b'hanach ardva dvarim eina chayev kedematzik b'shuli ketzar regel. Muedes dominik hit in ishmun b'misoy ish b'misoy v'lo shor b'misoy. A shor who damages a person only pays nezek. He doesn't pay all four things. So there's a very, very interesting shaila over here. Why is it that an adam who kills a person, he doesn't pay koifer? Does he actually not pay koifer? So Tosfos has a very important question. My chumra hizu. Why is it a chumra that a person doesn't pay koifer? Really has a chiv to pay koifer. But hide in mishalem as a koifer mishum de kimle b'derabamine. Really, there is a chiv to pay koifer. But we know whenever someone is mechuyev mammon and mis at the same time, you're potter. So really, there is a chiv koifer betzim. He just has that mister that overrules it. So using the Maram, the Tosfos says a gewaltig, a beautiful chiddush. He says as follows: when do you say kamma b'derabamine? When I did one action and it violated two different isurim. For instance, while I kill somebody, I'm also mechalel Shabbos, or I shoot an arrow and I'm moitzit mishus l'shus. So I did the action of a tar mishus l'shus, and while that was happening, it tore someone's beged. But there's two different things happening. If there's two different things happening, then you say kam le b'derabimine. There's a chiv misa because of violation of Shabbos. There's a chiv mamnis because I damaged my friend's beged. The misa overrules. But what if the one avera, it in and of itself is mechayev both? For instance, if you kill somebody, you get killed, and you're chayev koifer. There you don't say kam le b'derabimine. You only say kam le b'derabimine is if your action really did two different things. So then we punish you with the most severe of punishments. But if the one action that you did comes with that prescription of two punishments, their kam le b'derabimine will not work for that. So that's a beautiful chiddush in the rules of kam le b'derabimine.
We could have some things like that. If I do two separate masses, I should get.
No, so let me explain to you. The svara is the Torah says if you do this aver, you get this einish. If you do this aver, you do this einish. If you do two averis, we'll give you the most severe einish. But if the Torah says, let me finish, please. But if the Torah says if you do this, you get two einshim, so then kam le b'derabimine is a steer to that. The Torah says you get two einshim for this.
The reason kam le b'derabimine because it says
that's right. Right. So here you have one addition. It's giving them both punishments. So there you would get both. Okay, let's either go ahead and go more weiter. Frag to Gemara. V'chishar darker lahazik. It says atzara shavish abhen shedarker lahazik. A shar is not darker lahazik. The haraya. That's why the first two times it's considered a tam. So how can you use the word darker lahazik by a shar when you're talking about Karen? So Gemara b'muad. It's speaking by a shar muad. A mud also not dark lazik. It's the type of damage of a short goring. That's not a normal thing to do. So tomorrow, even the ayid urchehu, it becomes there. Once a shor becomes a muad, we consider it dark. Adam dark lazik. If mave it means adam, how can the Mishnah say it's dark lazik? So tomorrow b'yoshan, when he's sleeping, he could damage things. Yoshan dark lazik. Someone who's sleeping is dark lazik. Zok to Gemara, yeah. Even the chayiv poshit urchehu. If he goes to sleep near some fragile objects, it's normal. A person rolls over, he stretches while he's sleeping, so that's going to cause damage. Another feature that our Mishnah says applies to the four of us Nazikin is that you have a responsibility to watch this third-party item. Adam shmiris gufoy olav. It doesn't make sense to use an expression of shmiras nalecha when you're talking about yourself. Something else, I'm responsible to watch. But myself, how does it possibly use a lashon of shmiras nalecha? Frank Gemara, anyway, you have a problem. Because in the other Mishnahs, it says Adam as well. Even if Adam is not included in this Mishnah, there's other Mishnahs that talk about Adam that also say shmiras nalecha. Hadatani karna, arbavas nazikin, the Adam echad mehen. Adam shmiras gufay alavu. And that is Tani to the Adam Shmir Shkuvelov. Say that in fact, yeah, you could use such a nusach of on a person Shmir Shkuvelov. I'm sorry. I take that away. This is what it said. Hachanami to the Adam Shmir Shkuvelov, and Rashi explains Andres. The Adam Shmir Shkuvelov, the high dikatani Shmiras Nalecha Ashayra. So it's not Shmiras Nalecha is not a good nusach to use to describe man. Shmiras gufay is the right lashon. So in fact, even though the Mishnah uses a generalization of shmuras nalecha, that's going on the other items, shor, bar, hever. But the right expression when you're talking about a person's own responsibility is shmiras gufay. So therefore, we'll say that the general shmiras nalecha is not referring to it. Matzka flor of Mari. The Imam Abizahmai. You both said that you don't really have such a good ride from either pasuk, so let's consider other options. Maybe Mava means Mayim. Zok Rashi, what does this mean? What if you dump your water into Rosh Hashanah? And someone came by and his kalim, his clothing got dirty. The person who dumped him is chayiv. Where do you see that Mava, the word Mava, can come to the word water? Remember, we're just looking for some remote reference. Kedichsiv, kigdoyach eish hamasim. Let me just look how to read it. Hamosim. Just like the fire will melt things like wax and oil, it dissolves those. So too mayim tiva eish. Water will put out fire. And we're going to see exactly what mayim tiva eish means. So mayim tiva eish, at first thought, the Gemara assumes it means that the water is putting out the fire. Frag the Gemara, miksiv mayim nivu. It doesn't say that the mayim nivu caused that the fire should go out. It means it's like it bubbles it, but it reacts with the fire. Tiva eish, meaning the fire makes the water bubble, makes the water evaporate. So it's not the mayim doing something; it's the mayim receiving the tiva from the eish. So therefore, you don't find the word niva in reference to water. It's actually in reference to the fire. Zok Gemara, okay, you brought up a good idea. Maybe mava should refer to eish. You just said when it says tiva, it's referring to the eish, what it does to the water. Gemara, we already have eish in the Mishnah, which is hever. Maybe when it says it means the mava, which is fire. If that's the case, the Mishnah starts off with arba nezikin, shloisha hava, you only have 3. Maybe shor counts as 2. How are you going to read the Mishnah? At the end of the Mishnah, we said, we have shor, we have mave that have ruach hayim. Eish, my ruach hayim ispe, right? What type of ruach hayim does eish have in it? If you're going to say mave is eish, how could you describe eish as something that has ruach hayim? Visu my karei eish. It says loizev is a karei eish. Up until hever, the Tana was not referring to eish at all. So because of that, eish is nixed as being a candidate for mave. Mayim is nixed as being a candidate for mave. Our 2 options are Shane, which is Shmuel's opinion, or Karen, or Adam Amazik, which is Rav's opinion.
But what when you ask that mav should be mayim, what would be the category?
Category?
Yeah.
Mayim would be its own category. It would be a new category. The Gemara could have asked that kasha. How does it fit in? But we didn't get that far. Tosfos mentions that anyway you could slug it up. There's other problems as well with mine. Tosfos anyway. What?
It's not.
If you pour water on something, that's a different story. That's why Rashi says you poured it on the floor and someone got dirty with it. The problem is why is it like bar? So that's a very good trial. But the Gemara ended up slugging it up that the word can't mean that. Because let's see the Gemara about Tani Rabbi Yosy. Shloisha asar b'snazikin. Rabbi Yosy is a little bit more liberal in what's included in the exclusive club of Nazikin. It's not just a club with 4 members. It's a club of 13 of us Nazikin. And he adds to the 4 that we already have. Shoy Mechinam. A Shoy Mechinam was Chayiv Amshia. He's mazik because he caused damage by not washing the item properly. Vashoyel. A borrower is even Chayiv Anointed. Nois is Socher. A Shoy Mesacher was Chayiv on Geneva V'Aveda. V'Asoicher, a renter who Pashas has the same halach as a soicher, as a nois socher. Then there's nezek, tsar, verivoy, sheves uboishes. Then those are the 5 payments. Then there's the 5 payments of someone damaging a person, and which is a total of 9. The arba demasnisin, and if you add that to the 4 of our Mishnah, hot later 9 plus 4 is 13. Great thing more of a tani done my time a loy tani. Why didn't he include these additional 9? Zakmar Bishlam Shmuel, I could understand. Beniske Maman Kamari, Beniske Gufeloi Kamari. According to Shmuel, the whole Mishnah, which doesn't include Adam Amazik, is only speaking about things that your property damages. He doesn't want to include something that you damaged yourself. And all of the items in Rabbi Yoshi's list, Shemechinim, Shemesacha, these are all things that a person did. So that's why it doesn't belong in the first Mishnah. Elul Rav, where we do include Adam Amazik, listni, let it say it as well. Let it list these in the first Mishnah as well. So Tana Adam, in fact, sorry?
categories of folders. They're not saying that they're separate categories.
Really, the word.
Well, Rabbi Oish is calling them Avos. It says, right? It says right over at the beginning. Tanner of Oish, Shlosh, are Avos, Nezikin.
Why should it be included?
Why didn't the Mishnah say 13? Why didn't the Mishnah have 13? If Rabbi Oish found 13, why couldn't the Tana find 13?
According to Rashi, so it should have been listed.
Well, Rabbi Oish is a Tana. So he listed 13. Whoever our Tana was, he should have also listed 13. In his own list, yes. He had Schindler's list. There's Goldberg's list and there's Schindler's list. Right?
The word overseer.
Okay, so we're running against the clock, so I'm going to have to move forward. Elul Rav needs that tomorrow. Tana Adam v'chamil Adam. Frank Gemara Ula Rabbi Nami Hatani le'Adam. The way Rabbi Oishia learns, if you hold like Rav, it already says Adam. So why didn't it? Why isn't Adam in the first Mishnah a good heading for them all? So tomorrow Trey Gavne Adam. There's two types of Adam. Tana Adam the Azik Adam. In the second brisa, the 9 additions that Rabbi Oishia makes are talking about a man who damages a man. Our Mishnah, when it says Maveh, the Tana Adam the Azik Shor, it's speaking about a man who damaged possessions, where you don't have all these payments. Frank Gemara, if you're going to make such a distinction by Adam, Ihachi Shar Nami, Listni Trey Gavni Shar, why didn't Rabbi Oishia add more categories of Shar? Listni Shar the Azik Shar, which is the Karen and the Regel and the Sheni of our Mishnah, Velishni Shar the Azik Adam. And then we could have even had more categories. Let's think about it. There's a svara to separate the two categories of man, but there's no svara to separate the two categories of Adam. Bishlema Adam the Azik Shar, Nezek Hudim Mishalim. If an animal damages if a person damages someone else's possession, all he has to pay is the damage. Adam the Azik Adam Mishalim Arba Dvarim. He has to pay 4 plus Nezek. So it makes sense to separate them into two separate Mishnayos because they have really two vastly different sets of rules. Elashar, Mali Shar Dazik Shar, Mali Shar Dazik Adam. Idi v'idi Nezek Hudim Mishalim. All you pay is Nezek. Back to Gemara. What about Vashay Merchinam, Vashoyel, Neisesachar, Vasoichar? That's Adam Dazik Sharu. That's not a person hurting a person. Nezek Tar Ripa Shevis and Boishes. That is Adam the Azik Adam. But the Shemichim Shoyel, they're just watching your property. Vikatani, and it does list them. So after Gemara, okay. Tani Ezeka de Biyadayim, Vikatani Ezeka de Bamela. In the Mishnah, we're only mentioning damage where someone does damage Biyadayim, he goes and he damages someone's property. But in the Brisa, it even includes damages that you do that you didn't actually physically do something, you didn't do something, you didn't watch it properly. So that's a damage that comes because you didn't do something. That's why it separates this category even of a person damaging assets. Tani Reb Chia is even more inclusive than Reb Oishia. Esrim va'arba avos nezikin. We actually have 24 avos nezikin. So we have 13 so far. So all we have to do is add another 11, and that's how you get 24. So what are the additional 11? Tashlume kefel, v'tashlume arba v'chamisha, v'ganev, v'gazlin, v'edim zoimimin, v'ha'oinis, v'hamafate, u'moiti shemra, v'hametame, v'hamedame, v'hamenasech. V'hani tleiser, 11 plus the 13 that we already have, ha'esim varbo. We have to go through what these items are. So we're not going to finish the Amud, but I think it's more important that we know what these things are. So let's start with Tashlume Kefel, and let's look in Rashi. He takes us through one by one what all these things are. Kefel is if you steal, if you steal and you're caught, you pay back double. Tashlume Abba Chamisha is if you shecht, or if you sell a shor or chamor, you pay 4 if it's a shor, and 5 if a not shor is set, or 5 if it's a set. Viganiv, shemishalom al piatzmoi. So we're talking about a case where there was no tashlume kefel, where you're only paying the Karen, and that is when the Ganav admitted that he stole, he doesn't pay knas, he only pays back what he stole. Then we have Gazlin, Nami Avu. Gazlin is also an Avamazet. So there's only some mafater. Someone who seduces a woman, he has to pay 50 shekel. Ksivi chamishim kesef ksiv ba'onis, mafater ksiv kesef yishokol kamor absulois, kamor absulom shaloinis dainu chamishim kesef. Moiti shemra is if someone makes up a story about his wife that she was not a basula and that she was mizana and it wasn't true. It says meya kesef, he would have to pay 200 kesef. Mitama means truma. If your friend has truma and you make a tame, you've damaged him because now his truma is useless. Medame,
it's not seeable.
I'm sorry, it's a hezek sheni nikra. The Gemara is going to discuss that on Amud Aleph. Medame is truma b'chulin. If you mix so much truma with chulin, truma is less valuable than chulin because truma has a lot of restrictions as to who can eat it and when it can be eaten. So if you mix truma with chulin, you're devaluing the truma. So it's not a total damage, but it is damage. Menasich, Rashi says yain lavodah zarah. You pour wine to avodah zarah, and that makes it also. The Gemara getting asked if you pour it to avodah zarah, that means you're actually doing avodah zarah at the same time. So amai like kamle b'derabnei. Why don't you don't have kamle b'derabnei? But there's another way to understand medama and that menasich, and that is you mixed yayin nesach with good wine. So you're devaluing the good wine, but Rashi doesn't like that shot because you're not devaluing the good wine because you could sell all of it to a goy and you'll only charge him the amount of money to pay for the wine that was good. So there's that discussion. So for Ektimor, you have actually 24 Avos Nezikin that we could include. So we'll stop here, and tomorrow we're going to get an explanation as to why Rabbi Yosy, who included 13, why didn't he include all 24?
You should undo your belt. Exactly.